guys are so funny. You're trying to get me to do this stupid shit. And
she just whispered, "I'm a bad bitch," for anyone who didn't hear. Stop. 420.
I'm lit at Disney.
And the kids asleep in the bath.
There we go. A ball sack station. That's what a business owner looks like. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Tattoo Homewreckers. This is a podcast where we talk about tattoos, life, and everything in between. My name is Calista, and this is
Lou.
And today, we are in the kitchen. Technically on the wall opposite of the kitchen. This is still the kitchen, right?
Yes, and Guinness is trying to come behind.
Coffee machine number 1, coffee machine number 2. We've got creatine in the back. We've got collagen as well. And you're basically going around in a tour of our house.
Yes, we have decided that as we record, we will do a tour of the house. So I'm really excited about the configuration of figuring out how we are going to do the bathroom episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. But today we are actually talking about tattoos.
We are, yes. But before we get started with that, what does your gender feel like today?
Ooh, my gender today feels like a little cactus.
A little cactus?
Yeah, one of those round ones. What does your gender feel like today?
Those are so cute, the little round ones. Does it have the little bloom on top?
No bloom, just bald.
No bloom, just a bald little cactus.
Yeah, just a bald cactus. Just bald.
Of course.
No bloom. What about you?
Is it outside or in a pot?
In a pot.
In a pot, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't look like you're an outdoorsy type of girl.
No, I'm not to begin with. I want to be, but also I've lived in the desert most of my life, which means that I'm not really there's not a lot of good hikes around here.
Oh, don't say that to people. They'll come for you. They'll be like, if you drive up to...
Tahoe.
Yeah. If you drive anywhere, you can hike.
That's not technically in where we live though.
No.
Let's just make it very clear that I love Castle Peak. Castle Peak is dope, but that's also not part of Reno. So
no.
Anyways, yeah, I'm a cactus in a pot that's bald.
Nice.
What about you? What does your gender feel like today?
I would say, this is going to not probably make much sense to anyone who hasn't eaten English candy, but it's the white and pink marshmallow twist. So it's marshmallow candy, but it's not like a regular marshmallow. It's not like when you eat them here. They're a little less sweet, and they're twisted. And so it's a pink and white marshmallow twist. Hence my pink and white outfit. I'm feeling like a marshmallow twist.
Oh, yeah, you're matching it. Yeah, that's adorable. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had one of those before, but I don't like marshmallows to begin with. So I'll keep away from that. But anyways,
yes.
So today, I shouldn't say today, a week ago or so, sorry for fidgeting. We're still kind of getting used to this. A week ago, or maybe a week and a half ago, time is moving weird for me, you guys. Just help me out here.
At some point in the past.
At some point in the past, we had a listener DM us and ask us a question, or rather give us a suggestion on what we should talk about on one of our podcasts. Hence, finally, we're talking about tattoos. Again, thank God. And so basically her message, I'm going to keep her anonymous, but her message was, how do I deal with differences between coworkers and differences between young employees and an old school boss? This is definitely something I struggle with. And I said, yeah, we absolutely get the struggle. So it's a two-parter.
Yes.
How to deal with differences with coworkers. Yikes. That's rough. Especially in the tattoo industry, but I feel like a lot of people can relate.
Yes, I can relate to that. My coworker, garbage.
Oh my God.
Absolute garbage.
Dang it, you still beat me to the fucking joke. I was like, okay, you gotta beat her to it before she fucking says anything. Yeah, my boss is horrible.
Yeah, I
super
probably
old school.
have the worst. Okay, come for me on the old joke. Yeah, I would say honestly, do what you can until you can get out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no way to spend the rest of your life living. And I have worked with a lot of different people over the years. And I've had coworkers that I absolutely adore. And I've had a lot more coworkers that I don't get along with.
Yes.
Especially because if you've listened to this episode, more than one time, I am quite opinionated. And I do not like when things are incorrect. and I really struggle with not correcting people when they state the wrong information.
Actually.
Yes. Which is a big problem in our industry because, like I've said before, education is severely lacking.
Yeah.
So you just have like one person teaching another person, and like qualifications are not really in there. And just a base level of education of understanding like how tattoos work or skin or any of that isn't actually in there. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I would say to not necessarily grin and bear it, but just it is a part of working around other human beings. And then my biggest thing was I like just being open and honest. So I would rather just sit down with someone and be like, we don't have to like each other. We just have to get along. But that's also probably not the best advice because a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah, I think the forwardness is hard for a lot of people to outwardly acknowledge that neither of you two like each other.
But I just don't understand. If you don't like each other, why are we fucking pretending?
Well, I was about to say, I think the only advice that I can give you is don't pretend or force a friendship or like to even like each other. There's a way to coexist where you both can be neutral and not have to talk to each other while in the same room unless it comes up organically. And I found that like the less you try to be buddy-buddy with someone, the better off your relationship will be. You can coexist. Again, like not every animal in the jungle are BFFs, but there are some that coexist.
We're definitely not. We actually hate each other.
Yeah, this is all a lie, you guys. Yes. This is just for we only hang out for the camera. Yeah. Other than that, we fucking hate.
Yeah, we do not see each other outside of the podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're kind of like, we're outliers in that because there's not a lot of people that like can work in the tattoo industry and be as close as us. Like I've seen it happen before for sure, but there is a lot of like, to no one's surprise, the tattoo industry is incredibly competitive. Mm-hmm. And so even while you're working in a shop all together, there is still that competitive nature of worrying that like another artist is going to poach your client or et cetera, which I am lucky enough to not have like really felt that way because for the most part, the shop that like I grew up in, it was very, this is going to sound like a weird word, but like incestuous when it came to clients. The point was to match you up with someone who was A, excited about your tattoo as much as you were, and B, who was the most capable enough to do it. And obviously there were some instances that didn't happen due to favoritism and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But
which we'll talk about favoritism in a second because that does exist, especially if you have a more traditional boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's hard because there's a lot of, when it comes to traditional bosses, there's a lot of talk of like, you have to do it this way, otherwise you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times like we've heard from coworkers like, well, I thought about this the other day. You had a coworker, I was an apprentice at that point, who had told you like, you're a great tattoo artist, but I'm not going to get tattooed by you unless you tattoo me with a coil machine.
Oh,
which is so like, why?
Which I guess to come back to that point of like, not necessarily getting along with your coworkers or just having like differences of opinion. I think honestly understanding that it is a job and investing in your clients because your clients can become your saviors. Like,
yes,
like I said, have worked with a lot of people that I do not enjoy over the years and quite frankly don't enjoy me. So it's not that I'm being a bitch. It's simply the fact that like, we were not well matched.
Yeah, we weren't meant to be in the same jungle.
Yeah, like I have a 0 alcohol tolerance when it comes to working. And pretty much, I mean, besides like when I had a studio in South Carolina, actually come to think about it, it's only been since I moved out here because the shops that I worked at in Florida and the one that I had in South Carolina, we did not have artists that drank. I did discover one of my artists was an alcoholic, but it didn't, weirdly enough, he was what you would consider to be a functioning alcoholic. I say that in quotations because it didn't actually genuinely affect his work.
Yeah, well, it was one of those situations actually functioning because I feel like a lot of people have different definitions of what a functioning alcoholic is.
But out here, every shop that I've worked at, alcohol and drugs has been a huge issue.
Yeah, rampant.
And for me, coming in from a sense of like, I come in from an educational background with tattooing, but also just understanding that we are affecting people's bodies for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And I have had plenty of tattoos that I have not liked because the artist did not either do what I want or they did not do what they said, like what we agreed upon. And so I have a zero like tolerance policy around drugs and alcohol. And that's been an issue with every shop that I've worked at because they are not honest with clients. And then also the ones that do drink in front of their clients do it once their client is already in the middle of a tattoo, and then the client feels uncomfortable and does not know how to get out of that situation.
Yeah, it's a non-consensual thing.
Yes. And so I really think that investing in your clients, and I mean, depending on how shitty your shop is, you'll also get flack for that. I've gotten flack at every shop that I've worked at out here. And honestly, every shop that I've worked at that I haven't owned, where people have been like, oh, I don't like the relationship you have with your clients. Because oftentimes my clients will become my friends. And like, I love these people. Like, I cannot tell you, like, over the years, how many of the people that I am friends with on Facebook and Instagram, that it truly started as a client, like, tattoo artist relationship.
Yeah.
That I can imagine my life without knowing these people. And even the ones that, like, we don't continue those relationships for years, just having those moments with them in the chair can be a truly amazing thing. And
it's like recharging for the both of us. It's like that's what a healthy relationship is, where it's recharging for the both of us.
Yeah.
And I get where you're coming from, because it feels like almost weird calling them a client. You know?
Yeah, where it's that weird like client / friend like
I always say
like,
client turned friend. You know what I mean? But like, as cheesy as it sounds, like if you're in an environment where you don't get along with your coworkers, but you can be a safe space for your clients, and you can be a friend to your clients, or like just like, have a better relationship with them. Like, be the light, that you wish to see.
And also do what you can to figure out how to either A, get a private studio, or B, find a shop where you like the vibes. And just to be completely clear, there's nothing wrong with bouncing around tattoo shops till you find the correct one for you.
It's like dating. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally do not understand if somebody had been like, oh, I've been to like 6 shops, and then I'd like interview them and I was like, what happened? They're like, the vibe just didn't work. Like, these are the reasons why. I would not care. It would not affect me
like, I
one
get
bit.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like we went in during your apprenticeship, how many shops were we at?
3.
Because I mean, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that like there was a lot of misogyny, a lot of sexism, and a lot of just ill treatment.
Again, like drug usage, and like, there was a stint in my apprenticeship where like I was drinking at work, and you had to talk about we had to have a talk about it, where it was like, listen, kid, you either like you have a decision to make, either take this seriously, or you like, like every other tattoo artist, just party. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
But at that point it becomes so normalized. Like, taking a shot of whiskey was about as normal as like refilling your water bottle. And like, I think that's the thing, is like, unless you like have someone to like properly be like, hey, just so you know, this isn't normal, then it like really wakes you up. It pulls you out of the cycle of that.
Yeah.
But it's hard, if you're the only person. I'm really grateful that we had each other. Especially, I'm grateful that I had you throughout my entire career in the tattoo industry. Because, again, when it comes to like trying to protect yourself and trying to protect your clients, it can get really stressful. It can get grating. Like, being in that environment is a lot more, it wreaks a lot more havoc on your emotional and mental state than you really think it does until you leave.
Yeah.
That's what we realized.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is why I would be like, hey, I would advocate, like, previously, I don't think I would have advocated for as many private studios because I was, as a like studio owner before, and obviously studio owner now, I worried about like the quality that happens. Like, when you get someone who has only been tattooing for a couple months, and
yes, absolutely.
The inability to learn from others when you work like with others. But I think that like that is so different now than it was, say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Because if you want to learn, there's so many classes you can take online. And if you care about it, you're going to seek out knowledge.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, if you are just like, no, I'm the type of person that I would rather work like either like for us, I'd rather work for myself, and like we work for each other. And to be completely clear, if you're a tattoo artist, you work for your clients. But I don't work well underneath someone else, because if there's an issue, then I really struggle with not being able to fix that problem immediately. Like, a little side thing there is that like I worked for a studio that did predominantly online bookings, and the website was broken for so long. And I was so frustrated that I then asked for like all of the website information so I could go on and fix it, because they had a website guy, but nobody had even bothered to contact him. And so I was then like, just as an artist, like that's all I was then doing this like managerial position because no one would handle it. And then when we opened, our website glitched out, as they do, especially when you have a new website and we're the people that built it. So like, bless, give us some grace. But we had a client that was like, hey, for some reason it's like cutting off the submit button. And within 10 minutes, like Callie had told me, because someone DM'd the shop and was like, hey, this is the problem. And I went on and instantly fixed it. I was like, can you please let them know? So for me, I don't work well underneath a boss, not because I have a problem with authority, but because I want to make sure that if there's an issue, I can address it immediately. And if there is some sort of problem with clients, I can address it immediately. Because we, as we've just stated before, have worked for studios in which like sexual harassment of female artists specifically was rampant. And when you work for someone else, they get to decide. So I would absolutely, even though I would not be like, yo, fucking just open up a shop and you have, you know, been in the industry for like 10 days, you have to protect yourself and protect your clients. And if that's not an option, like you're like, okay, well, I need to save money. So what the fuck do I do in the meantime? Invest in noise canceling headphones.
Oh, yeah.
So when you are not tattooing, put in noise canceling headphones, listen to a podcast, like do what you can to protect your own mental health. And then just like you said, don't pretend. And if you are on the like neurospicy spectrum like myself, just be like, hey, we don't have to like each other. Like we just have to get along, and then let the fucking chips fall where they fall.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like it depends too. Like when you have that conversation, I think a lot of it like does like it goes one of two ways. Either one, that person's going to lie to you and be like, no, I love you, like you're so fucking cool, and you're gonna feel more awkward. Or like it'll also end up in a, well, okay, and it'll feel a little bit awkward at first, but then you'll realize that like you guys are doing a lot better now that like it's been out in the open. We're good, totally fine. There's a way to be civil and also like not have to have a relationship with someone, especially in the workplace. And I know that that's hard, because I think especially in the tattoo industry, and I haven't worked a lot of office jobs, so I shouldn't say a lot. Like I haven't worked any office jobs. So I can't really say that like I know what it's like. I've only ever been in food service before the industry, getting into the tattoo industry. But when it comes to like just sharing a space with people in the tattoo industry, it's so intimate already that I understand it's really hard to like move as a pack, especially when like if the culture of your shop is like, no, we are the shop and this is the ship and we move together, but like no one's on the same page, that can cause a lot of like dysregulation. It's hard.
Yeah.
So again, just do what you can to protect yourself, invest in your clients, invest in you, and
and try to build healthy relationships outside of work. Because like that to me was a like big like saving grace, like because the previous shop that we were at, like even though we worked together, we actually didn't get to spend much time together. And even now, like we work next to each other.
Oh, let's talk about the fallacy of that real quick.
A
lot of people assume that we get to hang out a lot. We don't.
We're working.
We like genuinely, it's so funny because people are like, you see each other all the time. Yeah, we see each other, but we don't like hang out. You're always dealing with your clients and you give 100% to your clients, and likewise. And
well, you give like, I don't know, 5% to your client.
You're the worst.
You're
horrible.
I think that's the thing, is that like if you do have someone that you can like lean on at work and develop a relationship with, awesome. Like you said, don't fucking force it. And like before you came along, I had 8 years like as a tattoo artist. And at that point I had, I don't know how many years. I think like, 15 years in the industry at that point. And so I had a long time of working with other tattoo artists that I genuinely could not stand, because I didn't like the way they talked to their clients. I didn't like the way they talked about women. I didn't like the way they talked about race. I didn't like any of the like aspects of
also,
them.
the practical side, didn't like the way that they set up without gloves.
Yeah, the like cleanliness factor of
the
like,
fact that they drank before their appointments, which or smoked before their appointments, which in my opinion, like the least you owe your client
is a clear
being
mind?
sober. Yeah, is being sober before you permanently alter their body. If you're a shitty tattoo artist sober, at least you're fucking sober.
Oh no, I'm not that nice. If you're a shitty tattoo artist sober, do better or get the fuck out of the industry.
That's fair.
Because I very much see us as the same level. Like if I had it my personal way, and I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, I wish that we had to have the same education as any other medical professional. Anyone else that's breaking skin, I wish we had that same level of education. Because it would weed out so many people who are only in this industry because A, they think it's cool.
Yeah.
And B, they just want a job in which they can just be a fucking like little hellraiser and don't have to like worry about professionalism. And don't get me wrong, I definitely would not count myself as professional in the sense of like an office job. I wear crop tops to work. I say fuck. I call people bitch.
We literally have colored hair, shaved heads, and piercings.
Yeah,
and tattoos everywhere.
Neck tattoos, and I look like I fucking made out with a tackle box. So I'm aware that by like office standards, I would not be professional, but there is a certain level of professionalism that comes with this job, which is understanding the seriousness that at the end of the day, you are making a permanent change to someone's body. And I absolutely understand how frustrating that is when your coworkers suck. And I'm not going to make a joke about her because she is actually a genuinely amazing coworker, but I understand that level and that fury and that frustration, especially, and this will make sense to anyone who's worked a job with someone that sucks at their job, or especially other tattoo artists. When you look at a tattoo and you know that if you did it or if someone else in the shop did it, they would have crushed it and it looks like hot garbage.
Yeah, dude.
And you're just infuriated because you're like, dude, this would be so good, but you fucking ruined it. Like, I understand that frustration. And sadly, that is a part of the job. That is a part of the job unless you, I don't know, end up in our situation where you were fortunate enough that, like, your best friend becomes your fucking fellow tattoo artist. Or you find other like-minded people, because there are lots of tattoo artists that I do love and adore and think are amazing. And some of them I'm like, fuck yeah, I would love to work next to you. Other ones I'm like, no, I love you from like afar, but I know that if we work together, I would drive you crazy because I'd be like, do you really want to use green soap on skin? Because you're not supposed to.
Oh my gosh.
So I would be that.
I wonder how many brains
cunt.
that's gonna break. So many people are still using green soap, and that's
not what it's for. So please don't use that. But that's the thing, is like really just creating a safe bubble around yourself. So if you do have people at work that are dope, awesome, and also understanding that like work relationships are work relationships. It is a fallacy, and I understand we live this, but on a whole, it is a fallacy for you to work with your best friend.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how that works. Like, it's a very rare thing. And if you're lucky enough to do it, awesome. But otherwise, understanding that, like, you get to go home and then just build good relationships outside of there and build the relationship with your client. Like, if you fucking hate your coworkers, you can still love your clients.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And as someone who's like built so many amazing relationships with their clients, if you don't like your coworkers or your coworkers don't like you, just know that the more your clientele and you get along and like love each other and have this amazing relationship, not only do you get to benefit because you get to know amazing people, but it pisses them off.
Absolutely.
So you can bask in the glory of the fact that you're like, hey, I'm going to poach your clients, not in an intentional way, but just because we're over here laughing and having a silly goose good time. And you're like your coworker's client who hasn't been spoken to the entire time or just had to deal with like their artist being an asshole, they'll book with you.
Oh, yeah. Because good bedside manner is amazing, but like actual authentic connection, you cannot beat.
Yes. And other people's clients. And like that has been a point of contention at every shop I've worked at, including the one that I owned. Obviously not this shop. That's like the one exception. She's not over here like, did you just steal my client?
We're also we share a lot of people.
Yeah, we share a lot of people because like if you like one of us, you typically like both of us. And I have no qualms in being like, I don't want to tattoo that, but she would crush this. And there's only been a couple pieces that we've actually genuinely like fought over of like who gets to do it. But usually we can like amongst ourselves.
We can mitigate
decide.
and then also be like, yeah, that makes sense.
But she did like a bomb ass tattoo earlier today that I was simultaneously jealous. And tattoo artists will get this. Simultaneously jealous that it was A, not being tattooed on me, and B, that I didn't I guess B, that I didn't draw it, but also that I didn't get to tattoo it.
Yeah. It's
like I was like on every level, just like, oh my God, I'm so jelly. But also it's great because when you work with great artists, you also get the benefit of watching it without doing any of the work.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, yes. Yeah, where it's like, damn, get it.
So it's kind of like watching someone work out. Like you can get the dopamine of like watching reels of people work out without having to do the hard work. And that's what I got to enjoy today. And I'm still hella jelly because I'm like, I really want that as a tattoo. But it's fine because I still get the dopamine of enjoying you create it.
Absolutely. Keep it authentic, you guys.
Yes.
Including your relationships with your clients.
Yes.
Do we have time for that second part
we
of the
do.
Okay.
It's our podcast. We have time to do whatever the fuck we want.
Period.
Plus, we wanted to, after the second part of the question, share some fun stories with you. Because as we talked about this whole thing, we were reminiscing about some awful stories about artists like throwing up and like just the insaneness. There being like a finger in a butthole at one point, like insanity. And so I wanted to share some stories because that way for anyone who understands what it's like to like not always get along with your coworkers or have a shitty boss, and I have lots of stories about that, then you too will then at least be like, hey, I'm not the only one.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So the second part of the question, I just had to bring up my phone again just to double check. So how do I deal with the differences between young employees and an old school boss? Boy, is this one a tough one. By young employees, like, do you mean like new age like tattooers? I'm gonna assume that you mean like more like newer tattooers, obviously, versus like what did you take it as?
Kids,
yeah. Children, and an old school boss.
Like a little 18-year-old baby artist that like think. But to be clear, I'm not shitting on 18-year-old baby artists because at the end of the day, part of that like developmental stage of the brain, just to come back to like psychology really fast, part of the developmental stage of the brain is at that stage, you genuinely have to believe that you know everything. And it really like, yes, that's part of that like seeking independence. The same reason that like teenagers have to go through a phase where they want to disagree with everything their parent says because that's how we build autonomy. So if you always said, okay, I'm just going to go along with everything, first off, you're going to become a people pleaser, which is just a form of manipulation, but you're also not going to develop your own backbone. So it's really hard when you are someone who wants to be taken like really seriously or like you want people to trust you, but you're talking to a 19-year-old kid. Yeah. And I can say kid because I could literally have had a 19-year-old. But when you're talking to them and they're just like, I know everything, you have to meet them where they're at. If you are a slightly older artist, it's like, dude, what the fuck? And meet them with compassion because these, like, it's genuinely a completely different generation and every generation is different. And it's not to say that they're worse or like anything like that. And I know we like to shit on every young generation, like they don't know how to work these days. But you know what? I was 18 at one point. I was, I was a 21-year-old or 22-year-old tattoo artist. I had a 6-year long apprenticeship. That's a whole other thing. But I was 22 and like, you need a little bit of ego when you are young to feel like you can actually do this thing. Yeah. And then as you get older, hopefully if you've done the fucking work on yourself,
you've done the
your
emotional
ego
work.
Goes away and you're like, hey, I don't know as much as like I, wanted to believe I know.
Like also hopefully, I mean, here's the thing. It all depends on personality wise, but I feel like as you get older, the more opportunities you have to get humbled.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So hopefully you're learning through these opportunities of like getting humbled that you're like, wait a second, I don't know as much as I thought I did, but that's okay. I can grow.
Yeah, it's great.
That means I can grow.
Everything you don't know is just another opportunity to learn.
Yes.
So that's where I want to say like with like, if you're working with like young artists and a traditional owner, there is a fine line to walk, which is like honestly, once again, the only way we change people's minds is we meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
So we learn about that traditional owner of like what they believe, why they believe it. And then there is no point, and I speak from like my own experience here, there is no point coming in and doing the actually on there. If you want to make like good change, it's slowly understanding what they believe, why they believe it, because like one of the go-to things that I've heard a million times in our industry, especially coming from an educator background, is, well, I've never had this. So like when you explain to people, okay, we'll use green soap as an example. We don't use green soap because it does not actually continue to kill bacteria. So you do need a like hospital grade soap that's going to continue to kill for the next 24 hours. And so something like HibaCleanse, which is great. Pure Cleanse was also one of my favorites, but it's hard to get anymore. But HibaCleanse is a great product. And so you want to use hospital grade soaps. So that way we are keeping the client safe. And also, to be very clear, just side note here, that's what's going to protect you if anyone ever sues you. And if you think no one ever gets sued for tattoos, you are woefully like misunderstanding the magnitude of how much that happens in this country.
Yeah. Also the magnitude of like that can absolutely happen to you. If it's happened to other people, it can absolutely
and
happen
if
to
you are using the wrong product, all it takes is like the moment a client like becomes disgruntled, whatever, they can say, hey, I got this infection. And if you are using incorrect products, like you are wrapping them in saran wrap, or you are using things like green soap, which is technically a floor cleaner, then the moment that like their like lawyer says, oh, hey, you're using this product incorrectly because like saran wrap has something on their website to state that they are not to be used for tattoos or tattoo aftercare, you've already lost your lawsuit, which means that they can then sue you for however much fucking money and you've lost. So that's where we want to be educated. And part of the problem with our industry is that we tend to think like, okay, well, this is never happened to me, so it's not going to happen to anyone. We tend to think about that with taxes as well. Whereas like I've known plenty of artists that have been audited. And so doing things to the level of which you are going to protect yourself and protect your clients is something that we see as like professional due diligence, which means part of like the younger artists tend to know a little bit more about this just because education now, once again, like I said earlier, you can like watch YouTube videos and learn these amazing techniques that like when I was coming up, I had to go to conventions and pay several $100s to learn from one artist in a 3-hour like seminar with like, I don't know, 50 to 70 other artists being like, please teach us how we do this one specific way of like color saturation. Now I can go and like get on, oh my goodness, I just forgot that website.
Like Patreon?
Yeah, like Patreon. And there's also like one that's like a masterclass.
Oh, there we go.
There's tattoo artists on masterclass, you guys. So you can go and learn like what they're doing to like take that style and then make it your own. So there's so much more education. But one of the downsides to like traditional like bosses and like honestly a lot of people that are slightly older, and I say this as someone who's like approaching 40,
who's someone old, I'm kidding.
Yeah, who's someone older depending on who you talk to, compared to other children, is that it is hard to sit in a place for a lot of people to be like, there is so much shit I don't know.
Yeah.
Is a really hard place to be. So giving a smidge bit of grace, not so much that you're fucking crushing yourself, but just a smidge bit of grace of like, hey, that would be hard. Let me figure out like how I would feel if someone told me that everything I ever learned was wrong.
Yeah, that's
a hard place to sit with.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, like when we're talking about old school like owners, and like obviously there are old school owners that like have done the work, and I have no doubt have done the work and like continue to try to educate themselves. Like I don't want to try and put like a stereotype on like more traditional tattoo shop owners. Because I feel like the stereotype that a lot of people are thinking in their heads as soon as they hear that is like, okay, so this person only does American traditional. This person probably believes in hazing apprentices. This person will most likely like, you know, only use coil machines and be loyal to the coil, and bold will hold, and, you know, like, you know, deny any other kind of tattoo style, even though tattoo styles are old enough now that like whatever propaganda you've heard around like fine line tattoos or like watercolor tattoos or whatever, like or any tattoos that don't have a bold outline, like that they won't last. That's been not disproven.
Yeah.
That's been like proven over and over again that like, no, they'll be fine if the artist you pick has the technical skills to make that tattoo last. I don't want to say that all old school artists are like that, but like, I mean, obviously, like when we're asked this question, one tends to be like, okay, so how do we mitigate that? I love that approach of like having a little bit of grace, of like knowing that like, yes, it can be hard being so deeply rooted in your beliefs. Like, no, this is how the industry is, and this is how I was brought up. So therefore this new generation needs to be brought up. It's the age old, people tell this with parents as well, like new parents.
Yes.
You don't want to raise your children the way that you were raised.
Yes.
Because this is a different time. This is a different place. This is a different person.
And honestly, I like to think of like traditional tattoo shop owners a little bit like your racist grandfather.
Oh,
If you come at him fully being like, hey, you're being a fucking racist,
you suck.
he's just going to double down. So if you do have like, because quite frankly, young people have a lot more patience than older people. Let's be real clear about that. So if you can have a little bit of patience, you can actually move the dial a lot with someone. And I know that's fucking frustrating. It's infuriating. And honestly, I wish I knew this in my 20s instead of like, you know, getting up to my damn near 40s and being like, oh my God, how would I change your mind here? But just taking like, if you know, hey, I'm stuck working for the shop for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Slow incremental changes without coming off as attacking them, because that's probably, as someone who was once young, that's something that like I definitely did, where it was like, no, I'm going to prove to you and I'm going to give you the science and like, that's it. And like, I'm not going to fucking have space for you. Whereas like slow incremental changes of being like, oh, there's these new products, like, and these are the benefits. So, and comparing it to older products in positive light will make a lot more difference than if you just come on the attack. And don't get me wrong, I understand how fucking infuriating it is, because you're like, why am I doing the emotional and mental labor around teaching you? But honestly, that's part of that shitty part of working for someone else. Means that like, no, you don't have to bow down to them, but you need to do the emotional labor for them to help educate them.
Yeah.
And it has to be gentle, especially with more traditional tattoo shop owners. It has to be really gentle, because part of what makes them a traditional owner is that they did not change with the times, much like your racist grandparents. If they didn't change with the times, they've held on to those ideologies that they believe are correct. And the only way we help adjust that is through small, slow, incremental changes, not coming out being like, okay, let's fucking just hit you with this like fact and not give you time to process it. But those small changes are really going to make a difference. And I can't believe that that's like the method that I'm actually teaching now, because I personally fucking find it infuriating. But as someone who spends her day talking to people, I also, and like talking to people from, I guess, in the political realm, like from the other side of the aisle, I have found that meeting people where they're at is the only way to help educate people. Whereas if I just come like, you know, bulldozing in with my opinions, that's oftentimes not going to help like mitigate the animosity that they already feel. Because at the end of the day, you have youth on your side. And if there is one thing every like older / traditional like tattoo shop owner wants, it's to be young again. So like they already look at you with jealousy, because they're looking at themselves as a declining artist and seeing you as some young, hopeful, upcoming artist. So there's going to be that jealousy there that, like, I feel like we don't, as artists, discuss very often. Where it's like, I look at her at 5 years of tattooing, and even at, like, 2 years of tattooing, she was tattooing above what I was doing at that stage at any point. And there is a natural level of jealousy there to be like, man, I wish I was that good at that age. Like, I wish I was that good when I'd only been tattooing for that long. But at the end of the day, she learned that because A, she did all of her hard work herself, but also because I was able to teach her the like shortcuts in certain areas
for sure,
to help her achieve that. That's not to say that I get credit for that, but it's that like they're looking at you as being like, man, I wish I could do that. Because like the styles that we have now, didn't exist even when I first started. Fine line was not a thing when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
So like giving that little bit of grace can actually help you not carry around the animosity.
Yeah.
And also get the fuck out. Do everything you can to get the fuck out of a shitty shop.
Just get out. No, I think at the end of the day, what has saved human beings over and over again, if we're going to talk about it in more broad scope of humanity, is connection. Find a point of connection, and that is how you'll be able to move the dial. Yeah, like you said, if you go on the attack, people are not going to listen to you. Immediately, you'll lose them. And immediately, like, everything you say from that point on is going to be discredited and whatnot. And
I'm actually a person, so I lose people a lot. Yes.
Can be, yeah. I mean, but that's the thing too, is like when dealing with, like, I would say more old school tattoo artists, I think, like, also realize, like, okay, take what works for you, leave what doesn't.
Yes.
Is a good one, but also have enough introspection to actually take a look at these, like, things and objects. If this artist is telling you, or this owner is telling you, hey, you need to get good at every single style because this will further push you along your career, and I promise you, you do not want to pigeonhole yourself. That is the worst idea. Take that and really sit with it, because I know how tempting it is to just go balls to the wall into your own style right away. But I can't tell you how many artists I've met that secretly hate what the fuck they're doing, because that's exactly what they did early on in their career, and they fucking hate it now.
Yeah. And honestly, as someone who has been a successful tattoo artist, like, I've always been able to pay my bills as a tattoo artist. I've never had to get a second job. It is something that, like, being able to tattoo all styles, whether or not I enjoy every single style, I'm good enough at each style that I can accept pieces that come in the door. So, like, every time I've had to move and start over, I've been able to make money taking every piece that comes in the door, which is great. So, like, it's also kind of taking those, like you said, taking those ideas of being like, okay, you're a really traditional, like, you know, owner. So, like, is this good advice? Is it hitting my ego? That's why I don't like it. Because, we've watched so many, especially for me, I've watched so many artists over my, like, career be like, no, I'm only doing this, and then not be able to pay any of their bills and be frustrated. And it's like, well, yeah, dude, only post the shit that you want to be tattooing.
Or you'll have the opposite end too. Not pay their bills. The opposite end is, like, I can't tell you how many artists secretly hate their style, but that's what pays the bills.
Yes.
But because, like, that's all they've posted, and that's all anybody wants from them now, they're stuck. And it would break your heart to hear some of these artists be like, what do you mean they hate it? Like, no, it's a real fucking thing.
And they put out amazing work, and then but they fucking miserable. Yes. So I guess that would be our artists. Like, learn every style you can possibly learn and practice it so you can be good at each one. Okay, so we are running close on time.
Yeah.
Give me one of your favorite, like, shitty coworker. We're going to do a shitty coworker story.
Okay.
And then we'll do a shitty boss story.
I'll have it be quick. One time I walked into a coworker talking shit about me specifically to our shared, like, manager. Our manager looked at me and said, oh, fuck, and then was trying to make eyeballs to him to, like, hey, shut the fuck up. But he just kept going because he didn't notice I was in the room, saying, yeah, Callista sucks at this. She's bad at that. She has an ego, blah, 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 blah. And then when he was done with his spiel, I finally went, oh, really? And he turned around, and then I proceeded to fucking rail into him and be like, you're only here because so-and-so wants you here. I am better at you, or better at this job than you ever will be. I'm also closer to being a tattoo artist than you ever will be. And I'll always be better at my job than you. And I just, like, ripped into shreds and then walked away. It was the most boss bitch thing I've ever done. So that's my shitty coworker story. What about you?
I would probably, oh my God, there's so many that come to mind. I'll go with one of my favorites because it's a really funny story. And it's that we had a communal shop computer at the studio, and I came in, and it was we had just invested in, like, a really big screen, much bigger than it needed to be. But my business partner at the time was like, no, I want it. And it was huge and ridiculous. And I came in, and because everyone would, like, log on to this is going to date us a little bit, Facebook. because you would talk to clients that way. This is back before we used websites.
Finding clients on Facebook.
Yes. Dude, it was terrible. It was so stressful, like handling all of that. I would much rather do our system where everything goes through a website. That's also my hack for like young tattoo artists. Yeah. Invest in a website.
Get a website.
Have a booking form. It is a game changer. Don't give people a fucking Gmail account. Give them your actual website. So like your email should be like your name at your website. It does not cost that much money, and it gives you an air of professionalism that will honestly be game changing.
Yeah, it'll set you aside from everyone else.
Yeah, and a booking form is the tits because you have all of their information.
Yep.
But we were booking stuff on Facebook, you know. So one of the artists had left their Facebook up, and I'm talking like this is like a 30-inch screen for the computer. It was big.
Well, that's still big.
And I go to click on to open the computer because this gets left on sometimes. So I like go to wake it up, and then there is just a photograph of a finger in a butthole in my work bathroom. My bathroom that I clean, that I fucking like have decorated, that is quite recognizable of a bathroom. Like it is on Pinterest. Not with the butthole in there, but it is on Pinterest. And though I will not kink shame, I'm aware, like I've had fun taking nude photographs, all of that jazz. I have not done it at work. And then but
also like if you're gonna be a criminal, be a smart criminal. I've always said that. Like,
yes.
Like make sure that your shit is not on a shared screen.
Yes. They sent it to someone and then left Messenger up. So then as like I just click to like wake up the computer, Messenger is already up, and it is a full screen picture of this artist's bum with a finger up it. And then I was like, how am I supposed to, like, I am your boss. How am I supposed to have this conversation about like, I need to have a conversation around like, first off, please tell me you washed your hands properly. And also, the only thing I can think is like, as your, and I say this in quotations, punishment for this, because please don't take nudes at work. Like do whatever you want in your own time. And to be completely clear, if I had not seen the background to be like, that is my work bathroom, that like, if someone ever saw this, like that's very obviously my business, I wouldn't have cared. I would have just been like, haha, no big deal. But I then had to like have a discussion with that artist to be like, hi, also, I'm going to need you to cavi wipe everything today. I need everything disinfected because I can see by the timestamp that this happened yesterday. So everything in the studio, anything you could have possibly touched with your buttful fingers has to be disinfected. And that's probably one of the like lighter, more funnier times of like having to have that discussion. And no, that artist did not get fired. They were a great artist. They are still an amazing tattoo artist. I still follow them and they're great.
It was
it was genuinely one of those like 18-year-old things where I'm like, I'm not going to judge you for that. I did have a good like chuckle. We laughed at it. My business partner at the time did not think it was funny and did not like the way it was handled and was very angry about the whole situation. But I genuinely thought it was hilarious because I was like,
it's like
there needs to be repercussions. So the repercussions are, can you please disinfect everything in the bathroom, and also don't put your fingers in your butt at work?
Yeah, really silly. That's a good light one for sure. Mine was more of a shit talking one. I feel like when I told that story, I feel like that came off really intense, but I genuinely swear that this dude was not as good of a worker as he thought it was.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, Caboose, we were talking earlier about like these like stories and we were reminiscing like shitty coworkers.
Yeah.
Right before we recorded. And Caboose brought up a time in which he was at the shop.
This is the same person, by the way, that was talking shit about me.
And it was a really big event, which is why Caboose was there helping. So we had all hands on deck.
Yeah.
We had more people than like we would typically had.
Yeah.
So I think we had like 100 people that we had tattooed in that day. Mm-hmm. Between all the artists, and it was a massive deal. And this person was so inebriated, and we were all by that point so tired of the inebriation that like no one dealt with it. We were all just like, whatever, make an ass of yourself. Also because if you called them out on it, they'd get really aggressive.
Yes.
So there was no point.
Also true.
Yeah. Like I've worked with multiple alcoholic individuals that would get incredibly aggressive, or drug related individuals that would get incredibly aggressive if you like said anything. Mm-hmm. But only here on the West Coast, weirdly. But he was walking around like asking people, because his job for that day was to ask people if they needed water, like ask the clients if they need anything. And he was so inebriated that he had a giant snot bubble like hanging out of his nose. And none of us bothered to say anything because we were all exhausted from like 12 hours of tattooing, and also just like, you know what, whatever, fuck it. Like there's no point in saying anything because you're just gonna get aggressive and yell and make a scene.
Yeah.
And so I think
all of us were secretly hoping that like upper management would come and step in, but they never did.
No,
but that's the same fucking person. So I would just like to say a caveat: that person deserved the fucking ass handling I gave him, the can of whoop ass that I served him.
Well, also, I'm a big fan of like, I mean, I've gotten slack for this in the past of like, if I'm talking shit about someone,
oh, you better be ready to back it the fuck up.
Yes, I will not stop talking shit just because you walk in a room, because one of the things that I'm a huge like proponent of is that if I'm gonna say it behind your back, I'm more than happy to say it to your face. Because I think that is the utmost cowardly thing, to say something behind someone's back and then not say it to their face. Mm-hmm. So if I'm like bitching about a coworker, which, you know, now I have to do all the time, but I have to bitch to my coworker about my coworker. But if I'm going to talk shit about a coworker, first off, I feel justified in talking shit for whatever reason it is. I feel like, hey, this is because there's an actual problem. And I will make sure that like, if they walk in the room, I'm not going to stop. Because I've had that where I walked into a room, side little story here. When I was in high school, I walked into the dressing room and I was the person in charge of all the costumes and like the assistant director, because the teacher was the director. And I was like, you know, basically a kiss ass to the teacher. But honestly, I just didn't belong in high school at that point. I like got along with adults more so than I did teenagers. Hello, you know.
Overparentification.
Yeah, overparentification there. But I walked into the room where like my friends and the other like people in theater class were, and they all got dead silent and stared at me. And I knew in that moment that they were all just talking shit about me because I took my role probably too seriously, because it's high school theater. But that was
We've all done it before.
Yeah. And I was, you know, 17. So like it was very serious to me because I knew that I wouldn't do theater after high school. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the production to be good. And like I worked super hard because like my mom and myself had sewed a lot of the costumes. And I walked in and everyone fucking just got dead ass silent and stared at me. And I was like, cool, you're talking shit. And then I fucking went through, grabbed what I needed to grab, walked out. And I vowed to myself that if I ever was talking shit about someone, that I would make sure that they never had that moment of dead ass silence when they walked into a room. Because I feel like if I walked in and someone was like, yeah, I think she's being a bitch, I would then actually, like you, be able to argue my case and be like, hey, maybe you think I'm being a bitch. I probably am being a bitch. I'm 17. I'm taking theater too seriously. Mm-hmm. But at least then you don't have that awkward silence.
Yeah.
So that's my other life advice, is that if you're going to talk shit, you better be able to say it to someone's face.
And watch out. Like, if you're in a communal space and you're talking shit with that person and that person's on shift, I will find you. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah. Also, curtains are not walls, and walls have fucking ears.
Yeah.
Because the amount of times that, like, the previous shops that I've worked at, that people were talking shit, and I'm like, you know I can hear you, right? Just because I'm not looking straight at you, I can still hear you. So being like aware of that, because that is one of those like toxic fucking work environments. But also, if you're going to talk shit, just be able to back it up. Be able to have a conversation with them face to face.
Period.
And if they talk shit about you, call them the fuck out. So on that note, you need to tell one story about a funny owner. Well, not funny, but like an owner situation.
An owner situation?
Yeah, because they have an old school owner. So
okay, yeah. One time I got called. I think it was like around Thanksgiving, or it was on Thanksgiving.
It was on Thanksgiving.
By a shop owner to get yelled at for like an hour because I didn't post on Instagram. And then, because this is how all abusive relationships work, by the way, then afterwards, very shortly received a text, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what day it was. I hope you have a wonderful night," et cetera, et cetera. But like, that is a cornerstone of an abusive relationship. It's like,
especially because, to be clear, the phone calls at all hours of the night, if you didn't post a social media thing, happened all the time.
Well,
because it would have been very different if it was just one time and then they're like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up."
Yeah.
No, it happened all the time.
It didn't matter if it was 6 a.m. or 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. or fucking in the middle of the day. Like, it was just, it became such a regular thing.
We were out with COVID.
Yes.
Because I was with you when you got that phone call when we were dying of COVID.
Yep.
And we weren't at work. And then you got the phone call screaming at you for not making a social media post.
Yeah. And it's one of those, again, that was pretty shitty. What about you? Shitty owner story.
I would say one of my favorite shitty owner stories, besides when like it's the same owner said that like women didn't need that much education when we talked about you having a college degree.
That was crazy. That went so crazy.
Yeah. Was the fact that
I'm sorry.
No, continue. No, please.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more story. One time, my boss got mad at me because I wouldn't sell weed for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so shortly after that, we had to fucking quit because they were pissed that I wouldn't sell weed for them, and I was 19.
Yes.
Anyways, continue.
And I would say, so that same shop owner that was pissed off that she had too much education because she has an associate in arts.
Which is not
yeah.
Sorry.
Which I thought was really funny because I was like, an associate's in arts, an associate's not like and I'm not trying to talk shit to anyone with an associate's, but it's not like a real degree, like in the sense of like.
It's that preliminary, like, okay, so you got your first like base done, but like that means that like you, anyways.
It's not a bachelor's, it's not a master's, it's not a doctorate.
No.
Which even then, we don't get to talk shit about the fact that someone has an education, because I do not believe that people are overqualified for a job. I think that if someone wants to do a job, they should absolutely be able to do it. I don't believe in overqualification, because if that was the case, she's overqualified to be my friend. So
what the hell?
Anywho, my favorite was the fact that this owner would not let me take the trash out at the end of the day.
I just told the story to a client the other day.
You want to tell the story?
No,
I love when you tell the story.
No, continue.
Because there occasionally would be unhoused individuals behind the studio. But to be completely clear, I was the only person in that studio that could do a pull-up. That at that point I was doing strongman competitions, so I was, doing car deadlifts, so I could pick up a fucking car and pull a truck, and was like, I was not concerned. I had the most muscle mass in that entire studio, honestly, with everyone combined, because no one worked out, but because I own a vulva. They were like, not a Volvo, but a vulva. I realized that people might be like, "You have a Volvo?" Like, no, I have a Mazda.
They're like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, but because I happen to, present as a woman and biologically be born as a woman, I was not safe to walk the trash out to the trash can by myself because they were afraid that I would be like, kidnapped and or assaulted by an individual. Whereas like the person I worked for at the time, and I'm not trying to shame people on muscle mass, but this individual had like quads that were the size of my forearms.
Hardly.
And so, oh, you're right, I have big forearms. The size of my ankle. But it was one of those like amazingly, like hilariously, like misogynistic moments where I was like, do you think I'm gonna get kidnapped? Someone's going to look at me and be like, nah, dog, that's not worth the fight. But that was like one of my favorite moments was the fact, and I did kind of enjoy the fact that I was like, wait, so I don't have to take out the trash? Okay, fine. I will take out the trash. But it was one of those amazingly like hilarious moments. That, and I'll give one more. I also got yelled at once by my manager and my boss after another artist client screamed at myself and my client as we were talking about, I had a DNC. So I had, an abortion when I was 22 years old. And he was discussing the fact that his wife had a DNC as well, and how like hard that was. And we were just discussing it because the tattoo I was doing was actually a memorial for the like baby that they had lost. And this other client started screaming in the middle of the tattoo shop, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And then both of us got really awkward because we were like, wait, what the fuck? Like, we're talking about like our lives, and I'm talking about my body, and he's talking about like his child who was not able to be brought into this world. And you're fucking screaming at us for talking about our own shit. And then my boss proceeded to tell me how inappropriate it was for me to discuss that at work.
Which, by the way, I have some shit to say about that. You say that it's inappropriate to talk about that shit at work, but like, oh, it's okay for the artist next to us to be like, oh yeah, my client's so fucking hot, bro.
Yeah.
Or
have porn. They literally had porn in their booth.
Yeah. Or like fucking
up on the wall.
Fucking blast E40 for like fucking 8 hours at a day. And I love E40, but there is a time and a fucking place.
You probably need to explain E40 for people that don't know E40.
He's a rapper. He's a rapper with very dirty, raunchy music.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's what I thought was the most hypocritical was like, have you heard the music these artists play that are derogatory towards women, promote violence towards women?
Pussy.
Yes.
But like, apparently when we're having a serious fucking conversation, it's not okay. We also once got in trouble. I've been told, I get that I got pulled into a meeting and was told this. I get that it was your birthday, but you and Luke can't be off at the same time.
Yep. Meanwhile, this year we're taking an entire week off.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've scheduled an entire week for the two of us to just
Meanwhile,
do
our coworkers get to fucking take off for 3 weeks at a time at the same time.
Yeah.
And no one else says anything.
So we wanted to share those with you because honestly, we see you.
You're not alone.
You are not alone. There are so many shitty fucking bosses, which I guess would be like my way of saying, A, get out if you can, and B, be aware of what makes a shitty boss to be a better boss. Because like at this point.
Love that. Yes.
Like for her, I know that she has a tendency to like overwork. She knows that of me as well. So then like when I do pull the boss card and also the best friend card, but when I pull the boss card, it is a case in which I'm like, hey, I need you to not overwork right now. Like I know that you want to say yes to pieces, but you are going to burn out. And it's the same way that like with the artist that, stuck their finger in their bum, there weren't repercussions. Like we had a discussion around the fact that if they'd worked in a regular corporate world, they would get fired for that. However, like I understand that they made a mistake. And honestly, the mortification that they had over that and the mortification I would have had was worse than anything I could have ever said to them.
Having the space to recognize that like it sucks being the person with the finger up their butt.
Oh yeah, bless your heart. That's terrible.
That sucks.
That's not what you wanted.
It's so embarrassing.
I mean, yeah.
How do you come back from that?
Yes. I'm like, that's awful. And so like having that, like, I guess that's the part of me that like I've had a lot of shitty bosses. And a lot of bosses that have not given me like grace or understanding or like ever tried to meet me where I was at. And honestly, I'm kind of glad for it because it's taught me to be a better boss.
Yes, absolutely.
So like if you currently work for an old school traditional shitty fucking boss, take notes on that to be like, hey, this is not the kind of like boss that I want to be. So that way, when you inevitably, like myself, become an old crotchety tattoo artist who's been in the industry for over 20 years.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, get off my lawn, you youngins. You too can actually have grace for younger artists and to understand that like in order for our industry to survive, we need them. And teaching them, and also more importantly, learning from them. So instead of being like, well, this is how we always did it in my day, being like, oh, that's an interesting technique. Can you please explain that to me? Or like, hey, what are we doing here? Because no one knows everything and no one's right. Yep. There are a million ways to fucking skin a cat. I don't know why I use that reference. Probably because I'm old. But just having grace for yourself being in a shitty situation. You did not choose this shitty shop. Mm-hmm. You did not know how bad it was going to be when you first started, because there is always, just like dating, a grace period. But giving yourself the grace around the fact that you're like, oh, I thought it would be different, because every shop I worked at, I thought would be a good shop until I got to know the culture.
Oh, yeah. There's always that honeymoon phase.
Mm-hmm.
First couple of months are great.
Yep. So, on that note, do you have anything else that you would like to, like, you know, any other words of wisdom? Kiddo? Youngin?
As a youngin?
No, again, as a new artist?
The two things that I really, really have to say again and reiterate are, one, take what you can, take what serves you, leave what doesn't, but also have enough introspection to actually look at the things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just like tossing shit out in different categories and not actually like really observing these things, then that's not going to help you. And then B, don't force a relationship. It's okay to coexist. You can coexist and be civil and not like somebody. One of my coworkers that I had taught me what it was like to just be quiet and silent and not acknowledge each other and be okay with that. It was great. Great lesson. Where it's like, oh, we don't actually have to like chat if we're in a room together.
I'm so jealous of that.
It was great.
I did not have that relationship. I'm still semi-convinced that they were attracted to me, because every time they would be nice to me, they would then spaz the fuck out and be really cruel afterwards.
It's negging.
And I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
You also had an artist, like a coworker, that was in love with you.
We did want to touch on this
hilarious.
briefly. Sometimes they're mean to you because they might be attracted to you. That also happens a lot in, if you're a female tattoo artist or a female presenting. Trust, it happens a lot. Before my male artists are like, no, that doesn't happen at all. Since when have you been female or female presenting?
Also, yeah, because we watched this happen, and I, for sure, being the person I am, and I like to be like, just let's play psychological games, was like, hey, this person has some pretty annoying habits, and they're just really unhealthy. You know what you could do? Use this like crush they have on you to get them to like eat better, so they stop like making weird mouth noises all day, because they've got like some pretty built up like unhealthy phlegm happening because they're eating shit they're allergic to. And so I was for sure encouraging like, yo, you should for sure like just sweetly, nicely use this like crush as a way to help them become a healthier person. Mm-hmm. And it did work for a couple weeks.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until it got weird. Yeah. So just know that also happens. That like, yeah, crushes happen. And also I would definitely state, don't date your coworkers.
Don't.
Yeah.
No.
That's a bad idea.
Horrible idea.
And if two tattoo artists get together, just remember that's how apprentices happen. So don't do that.
What?
That's
Is like a joke?
Yes, it's an old school joke
Sorry.
for tattoo artists.
That's how a new tattoo artist is made in this world.
Yes. So on that note, what is your win for the week?
My win for the week is recording a podcast. It's currently 10:25 at night.
Yeah. After we've been at work all day, we left for work 13 hours ago.
Yeah, we had a busy ass day. So that's my win. What is your win?
My win is that we worked out.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, we did. We've both been feeling rough, dude. It's been hard to get the energy. I worked out with 15s for the first time in years. And
I worked out with 20s.
I was like, don't judge me.
But combined, we did do 150
burpee power cleans.
Yep.
Devil power cleans.
Devil press, yeah.
Devil press is when it's up, though.
Yeah, but it's devil, like, devil press cleans, whatever the fuck they are. But we worked out with weights, and we worked out, and that's all that matters, because at the end of the day, when you're stressed out, you need good food and exercise to help regulate your body.
Absolutely.
So on that note, if you guys have any questions, if you're like, hey, I would love for you to cover X, Y, and Z, then we would love to hear your ideas.
Please, more tattoo ideas. We would love to hear.
Or other random ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wants to talk tattoos. I want to talk about anything.
I'm just saying the tattoo to life to everything in between distribution in our podcast is pretty
Because
crazy.
how much can you say about tattoos?
I know. That's so true.
We stab people for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just want me to sit on here and go bzz, bzz.
Yeah.
But our tattoo machines don't even make those noises.
No.
So on that note, thank you guys so much. We love you bunches. And we'll see you back next week where we're going to talk about something else.
Probably porn.
Yeah.
Bye.
Probably porn.
Bye, 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 bye. Oh, I accidentally recorded again. There we go. Button again. Oh, no.